forth and preach the gospel. Jesus told me long ago, there's a world that is waiting for the truth to be told. So I'll travel through the nations, obeying His commands, telling everyone of Jesus. I'm a traveling preacher man. Oh, so down the road I go. It's the only life I know. I ain't got much time to smell the flowers. There's a fire burning in my soul. I don't want to settle down. I can't think about that now. Until I reach that promised land, I'm gonna be who I am, and that's a traveling preacher man. Oh yeah. I've had my share of heartache. Had my share of pain. Yes, I've tasted loneliness, and I've learned not to complain. There's a cup, it's so bitter. Jesus placed it in my hand, and He said that I was drinking. Be a traveling preacher man. Here we go. Well, it's down the road I go. It's the only life I know. Ain't got much time to smell the flowers. There's a fire burning in my soul. I don't want to settle down. I can't think about that now. Until I reach that promised land, I'm gonna be who I am, and that's a traveling preacher man. Oh yeah. And so I'll preach for Jesus until it's time to move along from an empty stream of motels and a suitcase I call home. Now you might call me foolish, oh, but you don't understand. There's a fire forever burning in the heart of this preacher man. Here we go. Oh, down the road I go. It's the only life I know. We ain't got time to smell the flowers. There's a fire burning in our souls. We don't want to settle down. Oh no, we can't think about that now. Until we reach old heaven's land, we're gonna be who we are, and that's a traveling preacher man. Until I reach heaven's land, I'm gonna be who I am, and that's a traveling preacher man.
Hi there. Today we're going to discuss how to respond to an opportunity. But before we do, let's pray. Dear Lord Jesus, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for this time with this audience. I pray that by the end of this, you will give each and every one of us a better understanding about how to respond to the opportunities that you place in our life each day. In your mighty name I pray. Amen. Responding to opportunities. By definition, an opportunity is a favorable occasion when we are in a position to make a decision that will impact our lives or others in a positive way. Opportunities are very significant, and unfortunately, people pass them by every day. And I believe that is because of three reasons. Either they fail to see the significance of opportunities, and I'll speak about that for a moment. Opportunities are very significant because God places them in our lives. Your life is the way it is because of a series of decisions. And God places opportunities each day to make your life or somebody else's life better. And whether we take advantage of them or not is completely up to us. And so when you see one, you need to be able to see it has significance, big or small. Opportunities are not always a monumental thing where you're going to change the world. But a lot of times they're very simple, and they mean just putting a smile on somebody's face or bettering yourself in a small way. But the thing that I would tell you is small things start to add up. Small things become big things in the end. And if you fail to take advantage of them, you're going to find yourself in a worse place down the road. The second reason, I believe, is because of a lack of education on the subject. A lot of times, people fail to even see that there's an opportunity right in their face. And that is because they're not educated. They have failed to educate themselves on how to see opportunities, of which there are many. And the third, I believe, is because people are scared. People are scared to take steps to move out. Because sometimes, a lot of times, opportunities require a little bit of stepping out and doing something that isn't fully comfortable to you or myself. So, those are the three reasons that I believe we miss opportunities. We need to be very discerning, though, about how to tell whether an opportunity is an opportunity or if it is an obstruction. Many times, every time, really, the devil will place in our lives an obstruction, something, a counterfeit, if that makes sense, before you meet what God has truly planned for you. And if you're not careful, you will settle for the counterfeit and never fully meet what God had planned. So it's important that we begin to learn how to discern what is an opportunity and what is not. And we're going to speak about that in a moment. But I'll tell you this about that. One of the simplest ways that we can discern whether an opportunity is an opportunity or if it's not is by simply living our lives, walking with Jesus, walking in reading His Word every day, praying with Him, trying to better ourselves and become closer to Him every day. And if we do that and we start learning and growing in our walk with God, we're going to be able to much quicker see this is an opportunity and see if it is of God or if it isn't. And so that is one of the ways. You see, we have opportunities to share the Lord with someone or to keep Him to ourselves and go about our day. Unfortunately, we do that a lot. And perhaps you might say to me, well, I don't have an opportunity to share Jesus with somebody today. Well, are you going to work today? Are you going to the gas station today? Are you going to get something to eat? Whatever you're doing, you have an opportunity to share Jesus every single day of your life. And one of the simplest ways that you can do that is by simply practicing how Jesus acted, how He would have treated people. One of the most horrible things, and I see this all of the time and it sickens me, is the fact that Christians treat people in a way that Jesus never would have. Jesus loved people. And if we can start practicing love and showing other people love the same way that Jesus shows us, then and only then will you begin to see a better life. But most importantly, that is one of the best ways you can show Jesus to somebody else. You don't have to sit them down all the time and say, are you ready to take Jesus into your life? Because that is great, and those times come. But you will never get them to that moment where they will be able to say, yeah, I'm ready, unless you have showed them what Jesus was like, unless you have showed them that you are a true Christian. And so you need to begin practicing how to show people Jesus, how to treat people just in the same way that you yourself wish to be treated. And when we do that, that is a great way to show Jesus every day, not just to people that we think are supposed to be shown Jesus, but to everyone. And so that is one of the ways that we can seize opportunities, is to show everyone Jesus, to treat everyone in the way that we wish we were treated. And I'm going to do a sermon about loving your neighbor down the road, but this dwells inside of me, and I speak about this all the time. And that is really what I believe, and I think can change this world, is when we begin to treat others in the way that we ourselves wish to be treated. And so we'll speak about that at a later time, much more in depth, because I have plenty to say on the subject. So, when you think about your life, I saw this in a sermon, and I thought it was great, and so I thought I'd include it here. When you think about your life, do you see it as a series of responsibilities or a series of opportunities? And that is so great when you think about that, because in our lives, we get into a moment, into a rut, as it were, of seeing things as, I have to do this, I have to go to work, I have to see this person, I have to go and eat, I have to do all of these things, and it becomes a I have to and a bunch of responsibilities. And when you start looking at life as a series of responsibilities, then you're not going to see anything and want to take the time to seize an opportunity to respond to one, because you see everything as something you have to do. And it becomes a very depressive state of mind. But if you begin to see it the way that we should, as a series of opportunities, because that's what it is. And when you see life as a series of opportunities, and you start looking at things optimistically and seeing things as, God has placed this in my life for a reason, and He wants me to take advantage of it. Seize it so that my life will become better, or that someone else's life might become better. You're going to truly be able to take advantage of them and walk in the way that God has for you. So we should think of it as a series of opportunities. And we should most certainly take advantage of every opportunity that God places in our lives, because He didn't place them there so that we might look at them and say, well, that's pretty cool. He wants us to take advantage of them, to seize the moment. And so when we do that, we're going to better ourselves. And that reminds me of a story about two fishermen. Two boys grew up, best friends, but like everyone else, they were hurled with the struggles of life and of work, and they never had time anymore to do anything together. And so they decided that we're going to plan a fishing trip. And so they planned it out, and they decided that on this fishing trip, they were also going to eat. But they were going to eat what they caught. And so they went by the store, they got all of the sides, and they went out and started fishing. And after a little bit after starting, well, one of the friends, let's say his name was Bob. Bob caught a rather nice-sized fish. And so he put it away and was going to save it for dinner. Well, a little bit later, he caught another one and put it away. And later, he looks at his friend, and he notices that he's catching fish, but every time he catches them, he catches really large fish. And every time he does, he looks at them, and he puts them back in the water. Well, Bob starts realizing that they're not going to have anything to eat for dinner if he keeps throwing them all out. So he looks at his friend and asks him, why are you throwing these fish out? And his friend responded to him and said, well, my pan isn't big enough to fry the fish. And I think that many of us are looking at life just like that friend, that we're seeing things as too big. Well, Bob looked at his friend and he said, all you've got to do is cut the fish in half, and it'll fit. But his friend did not see it that way, and unfortunately, a lot of us go through life seeing things very narrow-minded, and we don't see different ways that we could respond to things. And so, I'd like to say, how many of us miss an opportunity by making excuses? Really, all he might have been doing, if you look at it in a certain way, he might have just not wanted to cut the fish in half. And so he threw it back. So how many of us make excuses by saying things like, I'm too busy, or I'm too tired, or I can't do this because of this, this, and this, and the list goes on and on. And so what does that say about us? What do opportunities and the way that we tackle them reveal about us? And most importantly, what does it say about that fisherman? I'll let you answer that. But I'll tell you, the way that we respond to opportunities reveal a lot about who we are. And the truth is, the way we live and the decisions we make, they reveal so much about us. And perhaps you're making excuses for things. I'll tell you this, though. People who think that they cannot grow from the way they are to become better are people who are already hopeless at that moment. Because the facts are, you're never done growing. You can never stop growing and accepting new things, knowledge. Never stop growing. If you're like that person and you're making excuses, or you're seeing things in a way and you're not taking advantage of opportunities, you can change. You can better yourself. And so I tell you, make that change. You see, opportunities come in small sizes and in major sizes, kind of like that fish. You see, the way we respond reveals whether we have discernment to distinguish when something is an opportunity and when it's not. In James 1:5, it says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. It says that in James 1, verse 5. You see, discernment, people talk about discernment, but it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult to use wisdom. If all we have to do is ask God for wisdom, and he will give it to us. You see, when we're not seeing opportunities and we're not taking advantage of them, it's from one of the three problems: a failure to see the significance, a lack of education, or because we're scared. And I'll tell you, when you begin walking in a closer walk with God, in a deeper relationship with him, you're going to be able to see them. You're going to be able to see opportunities and know how to respond. And that comes by using your time more wisely and taking the time to work and build a relationship with God. You don't make friends with somebody and say hi to them once a year and then say, okay, now that we're best friends, tell me how to do this. That's not how it works. You have to spend time with them. You have to cut out time in your schedule every day to spend time with them if you want a true bond. And the same goes with God. If you want to be able to use discernment and use wisdom to know whether these things that are right in your face are opportunities or not, it's simple. You need to start taking the time each day to read God's Word. You need to take the time each day to pray. You need to take the time to begin exercising godly principles. And when you do and you ask God for wisdom, he will give it to you. And when opportunities come, you will know that's an opportunity, and you'll be able to discern the difference between good things and bad things. It's not that hard, but it takes time and it takes effort. So, opportunities can sometimes be a surprise, and we feel like we aren't ready. But God knows when you're ready. I'll tell you, I was speaking with my sister, and we were talking about the ministry and what we were going to do. And she said to me, she didn't know if she was ready. And I told her something that I have learned, and that is you are never going to feel as if you're ready. You're never going to feel as if you have the right words to say. You're never going to feel as if you look mature enough. You're never going to feel as if you have the right resources and power to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish in this life. But you have to take a leap. You have to go and do it, because the reality is you're never going to feel as if you're ready, but you have to do it. God knows if He's placed something in your heart and you have a desire to do something, you are ready. He wouldn't have placed it there if you weren't. You need to begin doing something. That doesn't mean that you need to go out and try to be the end goal that you have, but you need to start making steps to become what it is that God has laid on your heart and do what it is that He has laid on your heart, because you're never going to feel ready. You see, I'm not going to always be able to say everything perfectly and in the way that is so right, because but the thing is, I would rather make 1,000 mistakes saying to you what was right and get the point across than to sit and bite my fingernails and say, I'm not ready to do it, and you slip by and not get what God has for you, and me not get what He has for me. So when you feel as if you're not ready, no, He wouldn't have placed it on your heart if you weren't. He knows when you're ready. But we have to be discerning, because, as I've said before, if you see something, a lot of times in our lives, the devil places a counterfeit in front of what God has laid out, because he wants to mess us up. He wants us to settle for something that's not as good as what God has for us, because God has the best for you and me. And that's why you need to have discernment. And you can use discernment and walk with wisdom if you do what I have said. It's not that hard, but again, it takes time and it takes effort. You see, people are hurting all around us, and everybody seems as if they're too busy. They seem as if they're too busy with their own lives to help somebody that's hurting. And some people will even say, well, we have reached a point in society where everybody is just happy-go-lucky and nobody really has problems, but there are still people out there that are hurting. There's people out there that are homeless. There's people out there that need our help, and we need to take time to help them and to seize opportunities. Use the resources at our disposal to use to help other people. You see, if everybody's too busy, it's not that you need to change everybody else. It's that you need to do something with you. When we start working on ourselves and using the opportunities that we have instead of nitpicking what other people do, we're going to see change. Because when you sit and you talk about other people and how they should be doing something, all you're doing is wasting away your time, your energy, and your resources. And so, with people who are too busy, take the time to begin to do something on your own. Just because you don't feel ready, know if God has placed it in your heart, He's ready. So, if you're truly following Jesus, you have to be ready to take an opportunity, even when you feel like it, even when you don't feel like it, and even when you yourself are busy. I'll tell you, there's been multiple times in my life where I will be busy doing something, and I will see somebody who needs help doing something, and and the first thought is I'm busy doing whatever it is that's at hand, and that's not important because we're going to see these scenarios time and time again. But when you take the time to say, I need to help this person because they need me, and because it's going to be effective in their life, put aside what you're doing if you can and help that person. You never know if you see somebody, say you're in the store, you never know if you see somebody and you're in a rush. You need to go and you need to be back and do this. You never know if you see somebody and they just don't look right, maybe. They look a little sad and they look a little off. All you've got to do is take a moment to speak to them, to smile at them, just to share Jesus in some way. Treat them in a way that you would want to be treated. That's all you have to do, and it could turn that person's day all around. My sister and I had this talk about our dog. We see people all the time when we go out places and we take our dog with us, and they want to stop. And before they noticed our dog, they would look all gloomy and as if they were just not having such a hot day. And when they would see her, their whole expression would change. And so when you take time out of your schedule, even when you are busy, to help somebody, it pays off. You've seized that opportunity, and you don't even know how much of an effect it makes. You don't even know. But again, the little things add up. You see, when you give God an opportunity, when God gives you an opportunity and you ignore it, you're not letting God be the Lord of your life. See, we think that when God gives us an opportunity and we say, no, it doesn't mean that much. But when God gives you an opportunity and you ignore it, and you know, and you've started practicing these rules of how to walk with God, and you start practicing it and you begin to spot opportunities. I'm talking about when you know this is an opportunity that I could take, and you decide to ignore it. You are putting yourself on the throne and taking God off, because you have then decided, I don't want to do what God has said. And you need to be very careful when you do that, because God has given you this opportunity, and if you know that it's an opportunity, take advantage of it. He didn't place it there for some reason, just to be another thing that you've had happen in your life, but He placed it there to better you, to put you in a place that He would have you be. He uses us. And when we let Him use us, when we empty ourselves of us and we allow Him to use us as an instrument of His will, that is when you're walking in a place with God that you most certainly want to be. So every opportunity that comes our way isn't going to be pleasant. It makes me think of a story that I really kind of like, and that is a man